Hi, I'm Mary Wessel, and you are seeing In the Darkroom, where I often teach. I teach fundamentals of photography, which is an introduction to the photographic medium through black and white film. Because I do black and white and chemistry, I am often in the darkroom with my own work. And one of the interesting things that I find with photography is that not only do we have the aspect that deals with cameras and lenses and representation, but we also have the the physical means of photography: chemistry, paper, and the enlarger. Early photographers, in fact, started with what is called a photogram, which is a cameraless image. You place objects on a photosensitive paper, expose it to light, and then develop it, and you get an image. Often these were started out with botanical specimens. What I do is I take color materials. So I have color photographic paper, the enlarger, which has 3 different light filters: cyan, yellow, and magenta. And sometimes I'll use a flashlight or some other means, but I'm able to create images on the surface of that paper that really don't represent an object in the world. Photograms are often deeply mysterious and indecipherable. They are at the heart of photography. We can think of them being at the center in the sense that photography is drawing with light. But they also operate at the edges, or the borderlands, we might say, of photography, because they don't really fall within the tradition of representation. I'm not really taking a picture of a person, as in a portrait, or a landscape, or an architecture scene. This particular series is called Blindnesses. And the reason is, there are a couple of titles that I played with, and the reason I selected Blindnesses is because when I work in the darkroom with color photographic materials, the darkroom itself is quite dark. Forgive the pun, but it is a situation where, unlike black and white photography, the level of safe light is extremely low. So you really don't have a sense of what you really don't see what you're doing or what you're actually getting until afterwards. The process is kind of an interesting one. It started with a reseeding of materials from Bruce Hartman through the Nerman Museum. And every couple of years he has a fundraiser, and he presents artists with materials to use. This particular year we were given vinyl record albums. So I had the classic black, I had white, but then I also had translucent ones: clear, red, blue, and green. I used these albums with the enlarger and kind of placed them through the light of the enlarger as I was exposing paper. So there's a highly experimental nature to this. You might think, as the person who likes photograms, as something like a little bit of a tinkerer or a mad scientist. We enjoy the the physical elements, the alchemy of photography. It is still, for me, quite a pleasure to watch the image come up in the darkroom tray when I teach photography. And so it naturally spills over into my work. I thoroughly enjoy figuring out what I can make those materials do. So in this particular series, as I am drawing with these record albums, I literally do not see what the image is going to look like until after it is processed. At that point, I see. So it somewhat mirrors the way I think the mind works. When we're figuring things out, we tend to go back and forth between order and disorder, a little bit of sense and intellect, things that we can control and can't control, and it has that unpredictable nature that I find really enticing. And in fact, it is that inexact, contingent nature of making photograms, the fact that you're not quite sure how it's going to come out, that really I find intriguing and propels me to make more of them. One of the things that interested me in this series is that when I had the albums, it was really like a record. The light itself was recorded on the photographic paper. So the other potential title that I thought of was the idea of record record, and the fact that a vinyl record album literally is recording the, say, music onto the album in a very direct analog way, which is quite different than a digital means. So these photograms, in fact, record the process of their making. as I kind of move the albums through various combinations of filters, and that's how I can create different colors. I can get bright reds, kind of these seductive deep purples, greens, and yellows. And really you'll see this kind of the sense of these forms. They kind of slither and dart across the photographic paper. And then they, as I'm developing them, I actually see the results. So it's kind of an intuitive process. I work with the materials, I learn how they work, but it's never exactly the same from one time to the next. I can only learn through actually using them. So that kind of, you might call it a dance, you might call it a way of being always kind of on your feet. Okay, what happens next? But you can do a certain number of experiments, but at a certain point you just kind of have to go with the flow of what you are getting.